Hello and welcome to what may be a slightly noisy vlog. There are people up and down the towpath cutting lots of wood, which I can hear, and I don't know if the microphone's going to pick it up, but if you hear a lot of banging noises, it's just people chopping wood. This is a Q&A vlog, questions and answers, so not a huge amount of visuals, just my ugly mug talking to you, but lots of questions which came through Twitter and Facebook and email and YouTube, and I will try and get through some of these on the old trusty iPad, starting with a question from Joe Smith on email. It's been 12 months since you, me, gave up work, sold the house and moved on to the boat. Is there anything you wish you'd done differently? Any regrets? And to be honest, no. That might sound a little arrogant and big-headed. I don't wish I'd done anything differently. It all panned out pretty much as I'd wanted to. But the reason that happened was because I did a heck of a lot of reading and research and planning from the moment that the idea first occurred to me. I absolutely devoured anything I could read. This was just looking at the Canal World forums on the internet, not just the current post, but I went back through the archive. I read up about different types of boats and stoves and fridges and batteries and chargers and the canals and the network and how to handle a boat. I just read everything, and then I read about how to buy a boat, what to look for in a boat, what are the weak spots, what are the main things you must have. I read and read and read and planned, and I went and looked at boats. I spend weekend after weekend going up to different brokerages and looking around them all. Ones that were below my price range, ones that were above my price range, ones that were in my price range, obviously, of course, that's always worth doing. Anything to get a feel for what was what and how it was to be. And then the plan simply had to be sell the house, buy the boat, move aboard. So I looked at marinas, I looked at moorings, everything. And so the plan came together. So ultimately, no, I don't wish I'd done anything differently, because I'd planned it out and researched it so thoroughly that I knew exactly what the steps had to be and what I was doing, and it all came to pass pretty much as that. So the advice is, do your research. Dean Barnes on Facebook. Hello, Dean. What do you know now that you wish you'd known before you started? And that follows up the previous question, because I can honestly, hand on heart, say I can't think of anything I now know that I really wish I'd known when I started. There's nothing that I've gone, if only I'd known that, because I did so much reading and so much prep that it's all pretty much come to pass as I hoped it would be. So I've been racking my brains. I can't think of anything I now know. I mean, I've learnt lots. Don't get me wrong. I've learnt a stack. I've learned about how to maneuver the boat and sort of putting all the theory into practice. It's not so much I didn't know stuff as I hadn't applied stuff. So I suppose what I know now is how to apply the knowledge that I'd learned before. I think that's about the best answer I can give you to that one. Dulcie Barnes on email. Are you living on your boat as a short-term experiment, or is this a permanent thing? Well, it was always going to be a minimum of a year's experiment. I always wanted to stay on here throughout all 4 seasons of the year and then look back, take stock, decide what to do. And at the time of filming this video, I am 2 weeks off a year of living aboard the boat. So I have begun to have a think, take stock and wonder, you know, is this going to continue? And certainly for the foreseeable future, yes, I'm staying on the boat. I'm not going anywhere. If for no other reason than if I went back to a house, I don't really know what I'd do. I'd have to go back to doing a conventional job and just living in a house. I haven't really got a path for if that happened. Whereas on the boat, I'm still having an adventure and I'm still enjoying it and it's still fun. So at least this coming winter I'll be on the boat, and probably all next summer as well. I think the goal now is to get to year 2 and then decide what happens. So I wouldn't say it is permanent. I cannot say for definite I'll never come back off the boat, but it's an ongoing experiment. Let's put it like that. Harry Wilmin on Facebook says, has there ever been a time, maybe at night, where you felt genuinely scared? And David Smith on YouTube adds to that with, if you leave your boat, Do you fear burglary or anything like that? Have I been scared on the boat? No, but I've been quite careful about mooring up in places where I feel safe. So if you saw my video where I went through Birmingham, for example, all the advice was, once you start at the outskirts, just go straight through until you get to the centre of Birmingham and then moor up. And equally, when you're going out, go straight out until you've left it behind. Don't moor up in some of the outlying areas because they can be a bit dodgy at night, things like that. So I didn't. And obviously Nuneaton was much the same. People said don't stop in Nuneaton, go straight through or you might get some trouble. So I haven't felt unsafe because I've tried very much to avoid any of the places where I might feel unsafe. I think if I'd been cruising along and I'd made a mess of things, it got dark, I had to pull up in somewhere I didn't like, then I would be potentially anxious. But I haven't, in my experience to date, felt anxious about being on the boat. Now, the thing about leaving the boat and worrying about burglary, yes, I do worry about that. I used to worry about that when I lived in a house, to be fair. I don't know why I imagined that the burglars are all constantly watching me, waiting for me to go out so they can descend on wherever I live. Statistically, it's not terribly likely. And even if the burglars did come, whether in the house or on the boat, it's always locked up. I'm one of those people who locks it, checks it, walks away, comes back, checks it again, and then worries in the checking I've somehow managed to unlock it. It's not quite OCD, but it's absolute check, 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 check. Have I locked it? Have I locked the back? Have I locked the front? Are all the windows shut? Little ritual of checking everything as I go. So do I worry about burglary? Yes. Do I do everything I can to prevent burglary? Yes. The boat is securely locked when I leave it. If it's on the side of the towpath, I won't leave it for probably more than a few hours. If I'm going to be away, if I have to go away for work or if I go to visit family, I will moor it up somewhere much safer, either in a very, very boaty popular place like the middle of Braunston, or I will try and pop it into a wharf or a marina where there is some degree of overnight security. And effectively, when the boat is left, a burglar who is determined could get in. It's the same as a house. If they really want to, they'll get in. But they'd have to take an angle grinder to the boat or smash the windows. It would be quite a mess and quite a noisy and time-consuming process. And if that's going to happen, there's probably nothing I can do about it. So I try not to worry too much. And finally on that front, I've not really got much on the boat for anyone to steal. Not that the burglars know that until they actually come inside. There's my camcorder, which I'm filming this on, and there's my laptop. And that really is about it. The telly is a dreadful old telly. I don't have jewellery or anything like that. I've really not got anything worth nicking. So any burglar who does get his angle grinder out and get on board is going to be mightily disappointed. But it is something I certainly do bear in mind. Kleber Guides, whose name I have probably pronounced wrongly, sorry, says, can you manage a pet on a narrowboat? For example, can you have a cat in a boat safely? Yes, absolutely, you can. And many people do. Dogs and cats, like in a house, are the most popular pets you'll find on board boats. I mean, dogs particularly fit well on a narrowboat. Normally, you'd imagine people would have little dogs, but I've seen people with they're practically donkeys. They're that big, and somehow they get them onto a narrowboat. So dogs very easily, and you can put them on a leash and you can sort of control a dog to a certain degree, although many boaters just let them merrily run wild up and down the towpath, which I'm not so keen on, because of course inevitably they come out outside your boat, do a little deposit and then go off again. So that's annoying. But yes, people do have dogs. Cats, many boaters have cats. I suppose it will depend on the individual cat, but all the ones I've seen take to boat life quite happily. They'll walk along the gunnels in that sort of cat way they do, knowing they're perfectly secure while you're watching them, expecting them to fall in. Occasionally they do fall in and you'll hear a bedraggled meow, but apparently cats are quite adept at getting themselves back out again. If push comes to shove, they will swim. And as long as you leave something over the edge of the boat that they can get their little claws into, they will pull themselves out again, or they'll go out onto the bank. I think the only trouble with a pet, and I know this from watching the Twitter feeds of some people who've got them, is that if, for example, you've got a cat and you decide that today is the day you want to unhook and go off somewhere, that'll be the day the cat goes off into the fields and doesn't come back when you call it. So it can be a bit of a liability with you wanting to move if you have a cat, because they will always scarper just when you want to move. And also, if you're going through things like locks, you probably need to keep the pet inside, I would imagine, because what you don't want to be doing is doing a lock and then your cat scarpers. And equally, you'd have to think about, how am I going to keep a dog under control if I'm trying to do a lock? Again, probably keep them inside the boat, I would imagine. But the short answer is yes, you can quite easily have a pet on a narrowboat with all the usual provisos. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Pets are not cheap. If you can, get one from a rescue shelter rather than a breeder. And obviously you need to be around to look after it. And that is a sort of restraint. It's a delight having a pet, but it is also a restraint because you need to be there, don't you, to feed it and look after it. Jeweler_B on YouTube says, do you swim in the canals? No, don't do that. They are full of rat's wee, which can give you Weil's disease, which is deeply unpleasant. There's duck poo and swan poo and goodness only knows what else is floating around in the canal water. You do not want to swim in that or get even the tiniest bit of it into your mouth. Truly gross. Are the canals very deep? Jeweler B asks. Could you dive in head first from the roof of your boat? Only if you want to break your neck. The canals are not very deep at all. Bear in mind that the canals were built in order for boats to be able to transport goods up and down the length of the country. So they only need to be a couple of inches deeper than a boat that is fully laden with coal or flour or whatever sinks to. And that's only a couple of feet. So the canals by and large are 3 to 4 feet deep, I think, not much more. They say if you fall into a canal, don't flail around and panic, just stand up because it will just come up to about here. So they're not deep at all. So if you do jump off your roof, you are probably going to break your neck and contract Weil's disease as well. So no, don't swim, don't jump into them. Matthew Legg on Facebook asks a question that, to be honest, I don't really have a good answer to. Sorry, Matthew. It's, when should you winterize your boat and how do you do it? Winterizing is something you do if you're not living aboard the boat. If you're living aboard it, you don't winterize it because you are living aboard it. But if you are leaving your boat over winter, then you need to make sure that if the frosts come, it doesn't harm anything on your boat. So I'll give you the gist of what I know, which is drain all the water out of the tank and leave a few of the taps open so that if any residual water in the pipes tries to freeze, it will expand up the pipes and not outwards and cracking the pipes. You probably want to drain down, if you've got a radiator central heating system, you'll probably want to drain that down as well, although they do have, I think they tend to have antifreeze in them, so they should be okay, but I suppose check your level of antifreeze in your radiator system. You will want to keep your diesel tank fully topped up to the very brim over winter so that no condensation can form in the tank, because condensation water in your diesel leads to diesel bug, which is a sort of algae growth, and when that gets into your engine it will choke up your engine and it'll stop. Then you have to clean everything out, clean the fuel filter, flush the fuel, flush the tank. Massive nightmare. So try and keep the fuel tank full. And also, generally, not just over winter, when you fill your fuel tank, you'll want to add some of this kind of stuff to it. This is Fuel Set. There are other alternatives to this. There's another very popular one whose name escapes me, but you stick some of this in and it essentially gets rid of the water or kills off the diesel bug, or does both. Definitely worth dropping a little bit of that in. It's massively dilute. I think it's something like 1 to 5,000. So you put in 50 litres of diesel, you put in 5,000th of that. What's that? 100 millilitres? I can't work out if that calculation's right. Maybe that's 10 millilitres. Anyway, it says so on the bottle, so you can work it out. and that should keep the diesel bug at bay. What else do you need to do when winterizing? I think that's it basically. You're getting rid of all the water out the pipes so that if it freezes, none of the pipes will crack. And check your engine antifreeze is up to strength as well, because your engine coolant system, you don't want that cracking either. As far as I know, that's about it. If anyone's watching this who does winterize their boat, perhaps you could chip in the comments down below with any additional advice. And that is pretty much it for the Q&A. There's just one final bit that I need to do, and that is announce the winner of the competition. We had the quizzical exertion video a couple of videos back, and I had loads of entries to that. Let me firstly tell you what the answers were, and I'll just pull up the winner's name here as well. Got all this stuff on the old iPad. 3 questions there were, you may recall. The first one was, what brand of inverter charger did I buy to replace the old charger that blew up? And that was Victron. It was a Victron charger. Some people gave me complete detail on what make, model, specification it was. All I wanted was the word Victron, so if you got that, congratulations. Question 2, when Neil and I went out on our boats and his broke down, what did I propose as the solution to all engineering problems? And that was a nice cup of tea. And then question 3, where was I when I knocked the second stove chimney lid off the roof and into the canal? And the answer to that was Lapworth locks. I had to make an executive editorial decision here, which it's my prerogative to make. I had so many people, hordes of them, saying Napworth with an N, that I allowed that entry because clearly they actually knew what I was and where I was in the videos when I knocked it off, but they'd misheard me. If it had just been one person who said Napworth, I might have disqualified them, but I had hordes of people saying Napworth, so I think I cannot have been clear enough in the video, and I allowed Napworth as well as Lapworth. Congratulations to all those people, and there were quite a few entries to the competition, but there could only be one winner, and that winner of the digital 12-month subscription to Canal Boat magazine was Mr. Craig W. Scribner from Kansas, USA, who should have by now been contacted by Archant Publishing, who published Canal Boat, and they will sort you out with a subscription. Now, if you did not win, fear not. Oh no, because I've sorted out a deal for you on Canal Boat. Look, they printed my own thing off as well with a special code on it. 12 issues in the post. This is not for a digital subscription, this is for a posted one, and this is for the UK only. I'll come to abroad in a second. If you're in the UK, 12 issues for £22. So instead of paying £3.99 a copy, you're paying £1.83 and it gets delivered to you. So if you want to take that offer up, it's a great magazine. And I say that not just because I write for it occasionally. You need to go to the web address www.subsave, as in subscription save.co.uk/DJTV. That's the special line that gets you into this savings. That's 54% off the shop price. 12 issues for 22 quid. If you are abroad, you can use that same link and get 12 issues for £36, which again, pretty good deal because that will include postage. So fear not if you didn't win. There's a good deal for you to be had on Canal Boat in a posted copy. I will put that link in the video description below so you can just click on it and go straight there. So thank you very much for taking part in the competition. I think that's about it really. So thanks very much. If there's any more questions, pop them down below. I've stuck some frequently asked questions and their answers onto the website. So again, I'll stick a link to that down below as well. And that'll probably just be added to as time goes by. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers now. Bye-bye.